Hi guys, today's lesson is on property of parallelograms. Now, what makes a certain quadrilateral be a parallelogram? Okay, so basically here's the definition. A parallelogram is a quadrilateral, so it's always a four-sided figure with two pairs of parallel sides. So parallelograms have to have two pairs of parallels. As you can see, these are labeled with the arrows to indicate that they are parallel. Likewise, this pair is also parallel. And of course, remember, that brings up some of our parallel line properties, right? We're going to have certain things in here that we're going to see based off of the fact that these lines are parallel. All right, let's take a look at some of the properties. First property is that the opposite sides are congruent. So when you have a parallelogram, both pairs of your opposite sides, so these two sides are equal and these two sides are equal. And what we can say is that our parallel sides are equal. So these two have to be equal and these two have to be equal. Likewise, the next property is going to be the opposite angles are equal. So not only are the opposite sides equal, the opposite angles are also equal to each other. So these two angles are equal to each other, and these two angles here are equal to each other as well. Okay? Next property we have here is consecutive angles are supplementary. Now what that means is the angles that are right after each other. So this angle here and this angle right here are going to add to 180. Now those angles are not going to be equal to each other, okay? This angle here might be 60, which means then that angle up here has to be 120. And if the next one over here is supplementary, right? If this next one over here is supplementary, then this angle right here, 180, again, these two have to add 180. 180 minus 120 would be 60. And again, that makes sense because our opposite angles still have to be congruent. But the consecutive angles, the ones right after each other, they are going to add up to 180. So 60 plus 120 here would add up to 180. And you know why that's happening? That's happening because of our parallel lines, right? If you think back, parallel lines, transversal, our same side interior angles are supplementary. So right there, we have a pair of same side interior angles that are supplementary. Same thing here. Here's my pair of parallel lines. Here's my transversal. This is another pair of same side interiors, right? Same thing here. This pair and this pair, okay, again, parallel lines, transversal, another pair of same side interiors, and same thing here, parallel, transversal, same side interiors, which is where this property is coming from. Okay, so again, your consecutive angles going around the picture, one right after each other, are supplementary, means they add to 180. Okay, remember that. We know that word. Okay, all right, the last property here we have is that the diagonals bisect each other, which means they cut each other in half. So in other words, this diagonal here cuts this one in half. So those two pieces are equal. And this diagonal right here cuts this one in half. So these two pieces are equal. Now keep in mind, the diagonals are not congruent. The length of this is not equal to the length of this. This length is clearly longer. The figure is slanted. So you're going to have a long diagonal, you're going to have a short diagonal. Right? So if this diagonal is 10, right, that would be 5 and 5. And this diagonal would be the longer one, right? So maybe that one is 12, so that would be 6 and 6. But the diagonals bisect each other there. Okay, let's take a look at some examples here. Now, one thing I added here is a reminder. Remember, when lines are parallel, your same side interior angles are supplementary. There are consecutive angles we're talking about right here. Your corresponding angles are congruent. And alternate interior angles are congruent, right? So we have all those special properties we had back in chapter 3 when we did the properties of parallel lines. Same thing here, okay? We had all of that. So that might apply to some of these problems. All right, let's take a look at the first one. They're telling us it's a parallelogram by telling us that the opposite sides are parallel. So find each measure. We have to find AB. AB is this side here. Opposite sides are equal. So, of course, that side has to be 10 centimeters. Okay, so AB is equal to 10. Okay, look at the next one. We want to find angle D. Now, opposite angles are congruent. We know that. So if this angle is 110, this angle over here is 110, but that doesn't really help us. That property is not going to help us so much. It's going to be this property right here. They have consecutive angles. This angle here and this angle here have to add to 180. So if this is 110, 180 minus 110 there is going to be 70. So that angle is 70. Remember, all pairs going around the picture are going to have to add to 180. And because opposite angles are equal, that angle B right there would also be 70 as well. But we see that the measure of angle D for that answer is 70 degrees. All right, let's look at some more practice problems. Applying a few more things. They're telling us it's a parallelogram. That's what that means. Parallelogram LMNP. So we now know, with that given information, that all properties of parallelograms are in effect. Okay? All properties of parallelograms are going to be in effect there. So Let's take a look. We know opposite sides are equal. I'm just going to find anything I possibly can find. I'm not even going to worry about these questions. So stay with me here. Opposite sides are equal. So if that's 10, so is that. That side's going to be 10. Likewise here, 12, 12 on the opposite side. Okay, I have some diagonal lengths. I have this part is 9. So if that's 9, right, that part over there is 9 because the diagonals bisect each other. So that one is cutting that one in half right there. Okay. What else can we get? We have some angle measurements here. Let's see what we can do with those. Now, here's the thing. Remember something. You have parallel lines here. That and that are parallel, okay? And that we know that because they told us it's a parallelogram. This is a transversal right here, which makes this angle right here, right? That angle right there is going to be alternate interior with this one over here. They're alternate interiors. Okay, remember when we had two parallel lines cut by a transversal, our alternate interior angles there were congruent. That's what you're seeing here. So that angle has to be 62. I can do the same thing with this one. I have a 62-degree angle right here. Again, here are my parallel lines, another pair of parallels here, and we have that transversal. Right, here's the transversal for that one. That's our transversal. So if that's 32 right there, then that angle right there is also going to be 32. Again, they are alternate interior angles. All right, so let's see what they're asking us. Let's see if we've got all the answers already in our picture. ML, the length of ML is going to be 12, right? We already have that marked. The length of LP right here, we already said that that's 10. Angle LPM, angle LPM, we found that. That was 62 because it was alternate interior with the one up top. So that's a 62-degree angle. We need the length of LN. How long is all of LN? Well, we found that this is 9, which makes this one 9. So 9 plus 9 is going to be 18. That's where this comes from. It comes from the length of this plus the length of this. So 9 plus 9 equals 18. The next one we have is LMN. LMN. What is this angle right here? Okay. Angle LMN. No, I'm sorry, not LMN. I have the wrong angle. MLN. Sorry, this one. MLN. That one's 32. Okay. MLN, 32. And then the last thing they want us to find is the length of QN, which we already found was 9. So again, we just applied all the properties of parallel lines to that. Okay, we just applied all those properties of parallel lines to that. All right, so let's take a look at the next page. It's over here. Okay, so let's look up top. Again, we're continuing to apply properties. This one's a little bit different because we've got to solve for x on this one. So let's take a look. First of all, we know it's a parallelogram. It's telling us the opposite sides are equal. So for this problem, to find w, we're going to do 4w plus 8 is equal to 5w plus 1. Okay, so we're going to solve that. I'm going to subtract 4w on both sides. Okay, that leaves me with w. So I have 8 equals w plus 1, subtract the 1 over here, and of course I get w to equal 7. Okay, w is equal to 7 there. So we're going to plug it in. 4 times 7 plus 8. 4 times the 7 plus the 8. That's 28 plus 8. So we get for that answer 36. Yep, 36. So the length of CD is 36 there. Okay. The next one is EF. EF is 5w plus 1. So I got to plug in 5 times my 7, which is w, plus 1. So that's 35 plus 1 is equal to 36. So EF there is 36. All right, the next one's the measure of angle F. We have to find Z there. How are we going to find Z? Well, again, remember, this is a parallelogram. So this and this are parallel, which means this angle right here and this angle right here, they're same side interiors. Remember we said consecutive angles are supplementary, one angle right after the next. So those two angles right there have to add to 180. So I'm going to do that work. I'll do that up here. This is for number 11. Okay, so 9z minus 12 plus 3z equals 180. The consecutive angles are supplementary. So I'm going to combine like terms, right? I get 12z minus 12 is equal to 180 there. And let's see, what else do I get? I'm going to subtract, actually I'm going to add 12 to the other side. So I get 12z is equal to 192, and then I have to divide by 12 there, and I get z equal to 16. So the z value is 16, and now I have to plug it back in. I got to find angle F. So 3 times 16 is going to be the answer there that we get, and of course that will become 48. And then we have to also find angle E. So we're going to plug in 9 times 16 minus 12. 9 times 16 minus 12, we get 132 for that. Okay? So that's how you do those. All right, the next part is classify as true or false. Every parallelogram is a quadrilateral. Absolutely true. All parallelograms are quadrilaterals. Every quadrilateral is a parallelogram. No, that is not true. That is absolutely false because rectangles are quadrilaterals, right? Squares are quadrilaterals. Rhombuses are quadrilaterals. Trapezoids are quadrilaterals. So not every quadrilateral is a parallelogram. That's false. All angles of a parallelogram are congruent. No. Okay? All angles of a parallelogram are not congruent. The opposite angles are congruent. So that one's false because the opposite angles only are congruent. All sides of a parallelogram are congruent. Again, no. Only the opposite sides are congruent. So that's false. All right, take a look at this one. It says, in parallelogram RSTU. We don't have one of those, so I'm going to draw one. RSTU. RS is parallel to TU. That is true. If when I draw that picture out, because remember, when you name it, you go around the figure. RSTU. So we find that RS is parallel to TU. That is true. Okay, now I need the next one's parallelogram ABCD. So again, I'm going to draw a little picture here, and it says if angle A is 50, then angle C is 130. No, that is not true. The opposite angles have to be congruent. So that is false. Okay, that's going to be false there. All right, let's go to the next one. Another trapezoid. I'm going to label it going around it. W, X, Y, Z. We always have to go around to name it. It says XY, which is the diagonal. All of this is equal to all of this. Is that true? Are those two diagonals equal? No. Okay, the diagonals are not congruent in a parallelogram. They're not equal to each other. There's going to be one long one and one short one. So that, again, has to be false. They're not equal. They bisect each other, but they're not equal. Okay, let's look at this last one here, ABCD. So I'm going to draw another ABCD, and it says A to C, this one here. Okay, we'll put that one there. And B to D bisect each other. The diagonals bisect each other. Yes, that's true. They do cut each other in half. So that is true. Okay, that's true. All right, look at the next part. We're going to do some solving for X and Y. Let's take a look at what we know. We know our opposite sides are equal. So we know that B there has to be 9. So B is going to equal 9. A, opposite sides are equal. So that A has to be 6. So A is going to be 6. Right? B is 9, A is 6. And now we're going to find X and Y. Our opposite angles are congruent. So if this is 80, X is also 80. Opposite angles are congruent. And now we have to find Y, but we don't have an opposite for Y. But what we do know is that the consecutive angles are supplementary. We know that these two angles have to add to 180. So if this is 80, 180 minus 80, that should be an 8 there, 180 minus 80 leaves me with 100. So Y is equal to 100 because the consecutive angles are supplementary, right? Angle X plus angle Y would equal 180 there. And we knew that X was 80. We were trying to find this, so we end up subtracting and we get there that Y is 100. Okay, let's look at the next one. All right, in the next one, let's see what we can find. Opposite sides are equal, so A and 12 are equal to each other, so A is equal to 12. B, remember diagonals bisect each other, so these two pieces here are going to be equal, so that B is going to be equal to 9. All right, we also have parallel lines in here, right? We know that these two are parallel, okay? And we also have there that these two are parallel as well. So that's going to give us some alternate interior angles. So right here, I have 45 touching that. And again, here's my transversal right here. That line is my transversal. So that right there, if that's 45, that one up there has to also be 45. So Y is going to equal 45. And then we had to find X. Now, X is the whole big angle, right? X is all of this. That's the whole thing, okay? So since X is all of that, let's see what we have to do. We need all of this because that big angle and this big angle, they make 180, okay? They are consecutive. And when I say consecutive, I'm talking about the big angle in the corner, that whole entire angle there, plus this whole entire angle here. That's what equals 180. So I have to add the 45 and the 35 together. And when I do that, I find out that those two angles together make 80. So that big angle is 80, that big angle. So we know that the 80 plus the X is going to equal 180. That whole big angle of 80 plus that angle of X will together equal 180. So again, I'm going to subtract 80 and X will be 100. Okay? All right, let's look at the last two. Same idea. What property do you need to know? Okay, it says it's a parallelogram. We know that the opposite sides are equal. So those two sides are equal and these two sides are equal. So 3y plus 4 is equal to 13, and we know that 4x is equal to 8. So these two are equal and these two are equal. So I'll do the x first. It looks like an easier one. 8 divided by 4 is, of course, 2, so x is 2. And over here, I'm going to subtract 4 on both sides. So we get 9. 3y equals 9. 9 is equal to 3. So x is 2 and y is 3. All right, last problem. Let's take a look at this. So in here, again, this is diagonals we're looking at. We know it's a parallelogram, so we know the diagonals bisect each other. We know that these two have to be equal to each other, and we know that these two have to be equal to each other. So here we go. 2x plus 8 is equal to 18, and 4y minus 2 is equal to 22. All right, let's subtract 8. So 2x is equal to minus 8 on both sides, we get 10. Divide by 2, and x is equal to 5. All right, and this last one over here, we're going to add 2 to both sides. So we get 4y is equal to 24. Divide by 4, and y is equal to 6. Okay, so x is 5 and y is 6. All right, guys, that's it. If there's any part of this lesson that you did not understand, please be sure to go back and rewatch the video. Okay, also there is the summary sheet posted here of all of our properties that parallelograms have, right? Opposite sides parallel, opposite sides congruent, opposite angles congruent, diagonals bisect each other, and consecutive angles are supplementary, meaning the big angle here and the big angle here add to equal 180. Okay? All right, guys, good luck.